Yeah, I have a pretty strong opinion on this one. I mean, just off the bat, super messy. I think Javonte Williams, his ADP is way, way too high for me. I don't really see the upside here. I mean, he was bad last year. He was outside the top 40 in PFF grade, outside the top 40 in rush yards over expected per attempt. He was bad. Obviously, he was coming off an injury, but not only was he bad, like this is a messy backfield on on a super bad offense. I think they'll be one of the worst in the NFL. And I think people forget that Sean Payton and this coaching staff didn't draft Javonte Williams. Like they went out and
Oh
got
yeah, yeah,
Jaleel, they went out and got Audric Estime. In this year's draft, I and it comes once again. I say this again: the guys that he's going around with, I would take 100 times out of 100 over him, because it's Devin Singletary and
yep,
Tajay Spears,
yep.
Blake Corum, who's an immediate RB1 if Kyron were to go down, Brian Robinson, who I think has a ton of upside. Even like there's guys like Zeke Elliott and Jerome Ford
Agreed.
at like RB40 who I think have way more upside than Javonte Williams, whether it's because of their offense, or their lack of competition, or whatever. I don't I don't think I've ever drafted Javonte Williams this season, and I'm not going to. And I like Jaleel at his ADP because he's going around, he's just going around handcuffs, and I think there's a chance. Obviously, he's getting training camp hype, or not training camp, but OTA hype.
OTA, yeah.
And I think there's a chance that he could end up being the guy. He could end up being the guy with a lot of receiving upside. He was extremely underrated last year. I mean, he gave us a few good weeks, but like as a runner with minimum of 50 rush attempts, he was second in yards per carry, fifth in missed tackles forced per attempt.
Okay.
As a receiver, he was fifth in yards per route run. I just think there's a lot of upside, and we saw a lot of efficiency for a guy that you don't have to spend like anything on. Whereas Javonte Williams being drafted right now, like he's the clear starter on a bad team with a ton of competition. That like, I mean, we don't even know how much they'll use Samaje Perine and Audric Estime. So
Yeah.
Javonte's gross to me.
Yeah, Eric, it's tough for me to get behind Javonte as well. This kind of feels like Jaleel to me, watching him last year to the eye test, kind of reminds me of like a rookie Jalen Warren, kind of a shifty guy, came out of nowhere. A Jaleel undrafted, Jalen 7th round type of guy, can catch, can make some different moves, and just seems like an overall good player to have on the field. The offense is efficient when he was on the field. Where do you land? Are we dogging Javonte too much? You got a little hype for the UNC guy?
No, no, I do not.
Wow.
Flatly put, right? Like there isn't really anything that we've seen, certainly on his tape last year, or even prior to that point, right? Like he would flash every now and again, but I mean, there's nothing on his film that there's really going to get you excited about. And the answer to this question is in the question itself. If we're talking about a decision between four different running backs, none of them are guys that you should be investing a
True.
roughly top 100 pick in, right? Like it's going to be muddy. This offense played at a pretty slow pace last year. They were a little bit below league average in terms of run plays per game. Their offensive line was just kind of meh, right around league average as
Yeah.
well in terms of PFF rating. So it's gonna be gross to roster anybody in his backfield. So you want to go with the cheaper guys. I'm a little annoyed that the OTA reporting comes out, right? Jaleel is dusting people,
Yeah.
and out there crossing over cones and stuff like that. And his ADP has jumped up like almost 20 spots in the last 5 weeks, right? So part of the reason why we say get out there and draft early is that these ADPs can be fickle, right? So,
Sure.
right now you're probably going to pay close to top dollar for Jaleel McLaughlin, but maybe there's some shining reports on Estime, or Javonte gets a little love, or Jaleel gets an ingrown toenail or something, and we see him slide back to that like 170 range where we were getting him through most of June and May, and that is choice, right? I can't even really double back on any of the efficiency points that Will made because they were spot on, right? Like the thing that I'll add is that he was sixth in terms of yards created per touch. Basically, when he
Love
had the
that.
ball in the hand, what he was able to create himself by way of a broken tackle or a juke or whatever it might be. So if we see him even just get an incremental increase in workload, then we should see pretty significant fantasy production piling up for him, even though he's very likely to be in a split backfield.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I'm right on with you guys. I think we finally have a little consensus here. If we are drafting someone out of this backfield, it is Jaleel. But as Eric said, we would like that ADP to go down just a little bit. I'm sure by the time redrafts come around, if he's still getting some hype in preseason, I mean, he could be looking, RB 42, RB 40. Like he might be going, which then I don't know if I'm paying that for him, honestly, just because
he can still get steamed up, but also past his prologue, right? There are going to be 5, 6, 15 other guys that get some positive reporting on them and start to steam up, and he'll kind of fall by the wayside again, right? So
we need some quad picks.
Have to bide your time a little bit with him.
Yeah, we need some quad picks of some other guys, the Mike Davises of the world this season.